Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. In today's episode, we're going to be covering August production results from Bitdeer, Core Scientific, and Gryphon. We've got a lot to go through. Anthony's prepared a few tables and charts to help us better understand these data points. Before we get into it though, please take a second, smash the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. It really helps get this content to other people like you who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below which of these miners you prefer, if you're currently holding any of the companies, and your outlook on the Bitcoin mining sector as a whole moving into 2025. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Another day, another update in the Bitcoin mining community. Today we're going to be tackling 3 more miners, starting off with Bitdeer. Now, Anthony, we just recently had Jeff LaBerge on the program, a great interview talking about earnings and really their technology roadmap moving forward. So I'd encourage you guys to take a look at that one. Another difficult month for Bitdeer, similar to many of the other miners we talked about yesterday. Really struggling with some of these macro, I guess, headwinds on the sector. Hey, Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about it with the other miners there. The weather in certain locations has not been great for Bitcoin mining. Not as bad as previous years, but it still impacts. The fact that the difficulty has been increasing literally month on month. There's no respite for miners. The production's been affected. Very much so. And actually, I had an article published literally this week from Compass Mining, which highlights the impact of the mining difficulty to Bitcoin miners for the period from January all the way through to the end of the earnings period in June, just to show you an example of how the mining difficulty is affecting the margins and also the amount of Bitcoin that's been produced. So it is a challenge for Bitcoin miners. In terms of Bitdeer, production in August was 166 Bitcoin. That's down 8% on what they produced in July, which was at 181. They did increase their operational hash rate from 7.5 to 7.8, so that's an increase of 4%. Deployed mining machines were at the same level of 87,000 for both months, so no increase there. Self-mining, though, for Bitdeer is, we've talked about this many times, it's actually a fairly small part of their business. I'm going to say around about 40, maybe 45% of the business. They do focus on a number of other areas. They're heavily involved in the hosting business. They also have cloud hash rate, which is enables retail investors to purchase hash rate or mining machines on the network and remotely and receive a return from that. And for Bitdeer services, managing that service, they get it's like a management fee as well and a share of the profit. So, in terms of power, Bitdeer, they have 895 megawatts of power, which, for what they're mining is a massive amount. But bear in mind, the self-mining is only a small part of the business. So, and when you look at what they've got in terms of power that they are currently developing, that's effectively more than another 1.5 gigawatts of power. So they've got about over 2.5 gigawatts of power, either online or in production to be available over this next 18 months. So significant increase in hash rate predicted for next year. I think at the moment they're at 7.8. They're looking to get to about close to 12 by the end of the year, but next year targets will be circa about 40 exahash. So we'll see the types of rises we've seen from a couple of the big miners this year apply to Bitdeer next year, and that's because their facilities are ramping up. At the same time, they're actually building or producing their own mining machines now. And it's interesting that we've had a number of speakers on the podcast recently and have alluded to the fact that, they expect the Bitdeer mining machine to be, a good, efficient miner because of the nature of Bitdeer itself. We talked about it before. Bitdeer was previously Bitmain. The two co-founders split, 4 years ago, and Jihan Wu, who's the CEO of Bitdeer, he formed the company Bitdeer from what he took away from Bitmain. So they've moved into the space where they're building their own mining machines. They've got an R&D team of over 50 employees, which, in some instances is more than some of the miners have got as employees. So that's a really big team that's looking into all the sort of technical advancements that Bitdeer are looking to achieve over these coming years. And we'll start to see some of their Series 1 A1 miner coming out very shortly, followed by the A2 miner by the end of the year. And then next year, they're bringing out the A3 and the A4 miner, which gets them really down to market-leading efficiency rates. So, as I say, Bitdeer very much, diversified in lots of different businesses. They've also got the AI business as well, which they're moving into. And actually, when you think about the amount of power they've got in development, you can understand why it's attractive to Bitdeer. I mean, everyone wants to sort of follow that core scientific deal that was announced earlier this year. And Bitdeer certainly have sites and power and localities very much similar to core scientific. So, it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing, a big announcement, in the next, 6 months, 18 months time for Bitdeer to announce, a big deal there. They are currently developing a small project in HPC in their Singapore office, which has been very successful, and they're going to roll that out further and increase the size of that there. So they've been not just come into this like in the last few weeks, they've been working this for quite a while, and we'll probably expect some big updates in the HPC space. In terms of fleet efficiency, one of the things is they do have an aging fleet, so their fleet efficiency is over 30 joules a terahash. At the last announcement, I think it's close to 31, 32 joules per terahash. So in terms of the miners that we have in our tables, this is one of the sort of like the highest efficiencies in terms of from a not so great position. But we'll see that efficiency drop considerably because they're only at 7.8 in terms of self-mining. We've already articulated they're going to try and get to over 40 exahash by the end of next year. So when you're replacing the current fleet and increasing the size of the fleet that significantly, that efficiency rate will come down, which will give them the benefit then of mining Bitcoin at a very much cheaper cost in terms of using these efficient miners. Now, they don't hodl Bitcoin, so they sell their Bitcoin on a monthly basis, so they don't have a hodl. And in terms of their production, they're sort of they're not in the sort of like the top 4 or 5 of the table, but they do have reasonably steady production targets each month. So overall a good position. And if you look at the quarterly results that just came out a couple of weeks ago, only 3 miners achieved more revenues than Bitdeer, and that was Core Scientific, Marathon Digital, and CleanSpark. So people might not look at them as one of the big miners in terms of their market capitalization, but believe you me, they do punch above their weight. And there's been quite a lot of articles recently, and I had an article published by Compass Mining a few months ago that articulated all the various types of service that Bitdeer provide, and that people should be doing a little bit more due diligence in this company, because really, if you're being valued as a self-miner, even as a self-miner, it looks undervalued, but that's only part of their business. They've got significantly more to offer than self-mining. So I think people just need to go and have another look at Bitdeer, do some more due diligence, because it's certainly something you should be aware of. There are other services that they provide which have got significant revenue streams attached to them.
Yeah, most definitely. Bitdeer is not one to be discounted. Analogy I think of, Anthony, is a phoenix rising from the ashes in terms of Jihan Wu and the creation of this company. They have so much going on internally, such great connections with a lot of these Fortune 500 companies, Taiwan Semiconductor, a lot of really institutional grade connections in the data center AI HPC world. So a lot of anticipation that Bitdeer as well could announce a big contract. And as you said, Anthony, an absolute massive pipeline in terms of power access and infrastructure access coming down to Bitdeer. So with that being said, you talked about Core Scientific briefly in your last response. Really, the tail of the tape for Core Scientific this year has been CoreWeave, HPC, all of the recurring, consistent, forecastable revenue, and the analysts that are interested in that story. But a lot of times, even myself, I forget that Core Scientific is one of the top producing miners and has been year after year for the last few years. So Core Scientific, again, same headwinds as the other miners, but putting up a strong month, 358 Bitcoin, and continuing to push that division of their business alongside this HPC build out.
Another solid update from Core Scientific. What you got to remember is, we're only going back 8 months ago. They were still, in Chapter 11. They didn't come out of Chapter 11 until the 24th of January. And, their share price effectively was decimated. They came out of Chapter 11 with over $600 million of debt on the balance sheet. People are sort of like, remembering how they went into Chapter 11. They'd sort of lost sight of like cost control, not selling the Bitcoin when they should have been, not having the cash flow that they need to operate a business. So there was all that there. But the team must have worked extremely hard during Chapter 11. They were in Chapter 11 for 13 months. They've come out of Chapter 11, and today they are the second most valuable Bitcoin mining company in North America, behind Marathon Digital. So, they've gone above CleanSpark this week. They overtook Riot last week. I made a projection of probably about a month or so ago that Core Scientific would be the most expensive or the highest valued miner in North America in the not too distant future. And that's down to the fact that, they've signed, what can only be said at the moment is just a fantastic deal with CoreWeave, which is already sort of like started now with the refurbishment of a number of their facilities. We were fortunate to visit the Denton facility, which has now been announced it's going to be one of their 5 HPC data centers. So we've been to what was the flagship Bitcoin mining center for Core Scientific. That's going to be refurbished. Those mining machines will go to other locations, and they'll use that site there to deliver part of their service for CoreWeave. That contract over the next 12, 13 years delivers 6.7 billion, of which there's a profit margin after all costs, and I repeat that, after all costs, of about $4.7 billion. And if you want to try and annualize that there, you're looking at over, certainly from year 3 onwards, you're looking at well over nearly $450 million a year, significantly over $1 million a day in pure profit once that contract is in sort of like year 3 and onwards there. So the first 2 years it makes 30% margins, and in sort of years 3 to 12 it makes closer to 80% margins, and overall the margin is 71%. That's total profit margin, 71%. Now, we sometimes talk about Bitcoin miners. If miners could achieve a gross margin of 71%, that would be awesome. But although some of the miners were achieving, over 50% gross margins in Q2 or the recent quarter, once you start adding in all the other costs, nowhere near it. Some of them were just about breaking even. So these types of HPC contracts are really why every miner is now sort of like looking in this space, and the numbers that aren't looking in this space are reducing on a daily basis, because we already heard the announcement from Marathon Digital that they're going to look at HPC now, and have just appointed 2 directors with the experiencing that background there. So Core Scientific led the way in terms of the big contract. Other miners will try to replicate that. And we've just talked about Bitdeer having the sites and power available. We've looked at the likes of TeraWulf. We've looked at the likes of Cypher Mining. IREN can also be part of that group as well, because they've got significant sites and power becoming available. So there's some big miners out there that can move into this space, but we really want to see this next deal. And so now we'll shift into their monthly production numbers following this.
Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
So in terms of the monthly operational update for Core Scientific, mined 358 Bitcoin, that's down 13%, predominantly due to curtailment at their sites and the difficulty factor for the month of August. Operational hash rate actually increased from 20.1 exahash to 20.5 exahash. That's an increase of 2% there. Operational power, we know they added an extra 32 megawatts recently, so their operational power now is 832 megawatts. They have increased their deployed mining fleet, and this will account for their increase in hash rate. So it went up from 172,000 to 175,000. Fleet efficiency actually dropped by 0.1. And bear in mind, this can happen with the likes of Core Scientific, because what they do is they do use their software to do various settings on their machines. So sometimes they'll underclock machines, and that way you'll bring out different efficiency rates. So their average efficiency rate for the fleet has dropped only by 0.1. So still in a good position there. And I said before, anything under 25 is in that sort of top quartile. So and they have got a contract with Block to replace some of their older fleet. So they've got a contract signed up for the Block miner, 15 exahash, I believe. And that'll be to replace some of the older machines and to then sort of increase the hash rate. So we've talked about the HPC for Core Scientific. They're not giving up on Bitcoin mining. They're predominantly a Bitcoin miner, but they are looking at how to get a good return on their investment across all sort of like businesses within the data center industry. And one thing they've been involved in for a long time is building data centers. We're talking about a miner here that had the most Bitcoin production in 2021, 2022, 2023, quarter one, 2024. The last quarter was the first time in 13 quarters where Core Scientific didn't have the highest amount of Bitcoin produced. So we've seen the likes of Marathon Digital increase their hash rate, well over 30 exahash now. But only just going past Core Scientific in terms of a quarterly update. So still a massive amount. If you look at the total production since start, Core Scientific are 10, 12,000 more Bitcoin than all the other miners at least. So they've still got a long way ahead, and they're still looking to grow hash rate. But at the time as well now, they're focusing on as many other deals to try and increase revenues and returns for shareholders. And the market's looking really favorably. I mean, as I said earlier, it's, this company has had so many positive news updates, as many negative updates that we saw in 2022 going into Chapter 11 at the end of 2022. We're seeing an absolute 180-degree turnaround with this company, led by Adam and a great team. And we've been fortunate to meet that great team at the Denton facility. And yeah, it's just been one positive news story after another. And if, for those of you that think, that the Bitcoin mining hasn't been driving the levels of revenues that we'd hoped for or expected for past the halving, this is one of the success stories. And you can see that from the fact that the share price has done probably better than all the other share prices this year. And that reflects in the fact that it's got a market capitalization now of over 2.5 billion. which is, in terms of what it's been through, quite astounding.
Yeah, it most certainly is, Anthony. Continuing on that progression up towards the top spot in terms of market cap, your prediction, a couple months left in the year to see if Core Scientific can crack that top spot. But for me, you hit on this, the share price itself has really been insulated, and the volatility on Core Scientific compared to some of the other pure play miners just isn't what it used to be now, given that revenue certainty, and excited to see that start to flow in next year and even strengthen this Core Scientific story. Now, Gryphon Mining next up, Anthony. One of the smaller miners we cover on the channel, we just had Rob Chang on the show not too long ago, CEO, talking about some recent M&A activity. So Gryphon able to acquire very low cost power to help bring down the overall average of their portfolio. So Rob continuing to deliver, I think he mentioned 25 active conversations on deals. One of those now obviously came to fruition and continuing to push forward for these final months of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, they announced recently the acquisition of just under 3 megawatts of operational business with 59 petahash of mining machines, and the average power cost there of about 1 cent a kilowatt hour. So a really good deal, and one that some of these smaller miners would have been looking into. In terms of their operational performance for the month of August, it was a good performance. And bear in mind, Gryphon have certainly been in that top half of performance all throughout the year. So, with the exception of likes of Bitfarms and Hive, they're certainly holding their own in that group there. They mined 20 Bitcoin in the month of August. That was one down from the month of July, or approximately 20. That's what the update said. So we'll take it in our tables as at 20, but it's probably either slightly higher or slightly lower than 20, but approximately 20 Bitcoin. That was a 7% reduction. And again, down to the difficulty, down to the fact that, miners are having to switch off in the warmer climates, where, when the weather's hot and more sort of air conditioning is being used by the domestic requirement. In terms of hash rate, they were able to achieve their highest hash rate since they became a mining company, and that was just under 0.9 exahash in the month of August. That was up 1% from where we were at the end of July. So, steadily going in the right direction. But I think investors would have probably want to see maybe, more of an increase this year. But, Rob's got one deal on the table done and dusted, and I'm sure he'll be looking into getting some of those other deals in place as and when they become real good opportunities. In terms of power availability at the moment, they've got 28 megawatts of power. Their fleet efficiency actually improved again slightly this month. So they're now at 28.5, and that will slowly improve as they start adding more mining machines to their operations, more efficient mining machines. And to fund that, they've been, they've got a small hodl. I mean, it was at 21 Bitcoin in the month of July. It's gone down to 15 for the month of August. So just under $900,000 in terms of hodl value as at the 31st of August when it was valued. That's come down probably, close to nearly $500,000 from the end of July. So, the Bitcoin price dropped by $5,000 between the end of July and the end of August, and also the fact that they sold more Bitcoin than they produced. So they've actually sold a little bit more of the hodl. But I'm assuming that was to sort of utilize the purchase of this new acquisition. So, positive thing there, they'll get 59 more petahash to deliver more Bitcoin in the up and coming months. In terms of Bitcoin mined per exahash, well, actually, Gryphon have achieved higher than Hive and Bitfarms this month, so slightly higher at 22.7 versus 22.4. So that will keep them in a good position there going towards the end of the year. And it's a good a good update. I mean, I think obviously with every positive, obviously, that they won't be as happy the fact that their production went down from 21 to 20, but they can't control the difficulty. That's the mining machines on the network itself. That what they can control is making sure they can access the cheapest power, make sure that their fleets are the most efficient within their affordability. And one thing we know about Gryphon is they don't have very many costs to bear because they're very, very, very low on cost in terms of staffing. I think there's only 3 actual people working on a day-to-day basis. They do have 6 directors now. So in fact, another director was appointed this week. So they welcomed Dan Tolhurst to the board of directors. He's actually one of the founding members. So he's come back as the board of directors. That takes him to 6 directors. And in terms of staff, they've got 3 staff. But I did notice there was an advertisement for a vice president of mining. So for people out there interested in the space, looking for an opportunity, there was a job being advertised for the company as a VP of mining. So
there you go.
Go and do some checking, see what the requirements are of that there. If you've got the relevant skill set, always worth having a chat with Rob if he's looking for the right caliber person. He might be the one for you. But yeah, overall, a very steady update from Gryphon. That will keep them certainly in that top 4 or 5 miners going forward to the end of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. A really strong update, I thought, coming from Rob and team, and congrats on a great month for Gryphon. So, Anthony, another 3 miners in the books here. We'll continue to monitor production results as they come out, and all important price of Bitcoin here into the weekend. We appreciate the time today, guys. If you're still watching, you found value here, hit the like button. It helps get this content to other people like yourself. Feel free to subscribe, and if you have any questions for myself, Anthony, or any of the C-suite here for these companies, leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.